Welcome to my final presentation. My name is Jewel, and I'll be discussing a global issue affecting Indigenous communities of Alaska. Climate change is a global problem that has affected many local Alaska Native communities who partake in subsistence activities. A huge part of our Alaska Native culture is gathering, harvesting, hunting, and fishing for the food that we eat year-round. We take great pride in our subsistence and harvesting traditional foods as it's a part of who we are. It's our identity. Not only is it our culture and way of life, but local store prices and the reliability of these stores and fresh produce are not great, leaving us no option but to have our traditional foods be put away and stored and stocked in our freezers for the long, brutal, and harsh winters ahead. Some of you might be wondering, how is climate change affecting Alaska Native communities who rely on subsistence foods? How are they being affected by a global issue? Well, that's a great question, and to put it simply, it is affecting Alaska Native communities who subsist due to infrastructure damage, loss of subsistence living, bad sea ice, and in some years, no sea ice. And included in this slide is a picture that I took in the spring. So here you can see the sea ice and you can see a baby seal on it. So infrastructure damage in Indigenous communities of Alaska is huge. It may not seem major to some people, but many are having their hometown be relocated due to infrastructure damage. Here we have pictures of Untitled, Alaska being affected by climate change. You can see ice chunks and ice pieces in the yards of people's homes, damaging their homes, making it even that much more difficult for them to be living in their community. So this is one example on how climate change is affecting us. Another example is subsistence. So many are adapting to their way of life being changed and threatened. Alaska Native culture and the subsistence lifestyle is being threatened. And you might be wondering, well, what's changing? How is it being threatened? Well, many are finding ways to adapt to climate change in their local communities in how they subsist their traditional foods that are sacred to them. So the loss of sea ice has been major to many Alaska Native communities that live on the coast of Alaska. In particular, it has been affecting Untitled and the Indigenous people of this community located on the Bering Strait. So here we have two pictures that I've included that I've also taken as well, and they're both of my significant other. And in the picture where he's looking out in binoculars, he's seal and ugruk hunting in the springtime. And you can see in the picture a few ice chunks, but not many, which is not great for us. And you can see that we're having some difficulty looking for our food source. Sadly, we came home empty-handed from that trip, and we had to travel very far to even get to any ice at all, so it was a bummer. And the other picture is a picture of him out harvesting crab. And this is a way my significant other's family has adapted to climate change. So in the springtime, they would actually travel by snow machine and cut a chunk of ice out, and they would put a pot down through the ice. But now that we don't have much ice in the spring, and in some years no ice, like you can see in that picture, it leaves them to travel by boat and set crab pots that way. Here are a couple more photos that I've included on examples of subsistence being affected. So on the left we have caribou jerky, and on the right we have fish. And fish are being affected due to the warmer temperatures in the summertime due to climate change. It's left many fish to be belly up due to the water warming, and I'll get into details later about how caribou is being affected. So here are some more examples of subsistence being affected. So on the very left, you can see my father-in-law on the bad sea ice. I had gotten my first ugruk, and we had thought we had been careful, and we were trying to make sure that I got an ugruk that was on safe ice. It turned out being that I got the ugruk on not safe ice at all. And so he has a life jacket on, we have rope tied to him, and we have the other end of the rope, and he has a piece of wood that he can use to help lift himself out of the ice if he does happen to fall through. It was very scary, and he was very sweet in wanting to get my ugruk for me. And then in the middle we have Muktuk. Muktuk is a whale from a bowhead whale, and that's being affected. So we use what's called a platform, which is an extension of the land, but it's of sea ice, and that further enables us to go out and subsist whale when we need. And without that platform, it'd be very hard otherwise to subsist whale. And on the very right, we have a picture of my family ice fishing in the springtime. And we ice fish for trout, which is a food source for us. It's so good to eat, and we are saving the salmon and catching trout because they like to feed off of salmon. And shorter winters of, colder temperatures, it will leave us to have to boat upriver instead of snow machine upriver and ice fish. We would just be fishing out of our boats for these trouts. So it's affecting many aspects of our subsistence lifestyle. To continue on, it's affecting how we subsist geese. We travel by snow machine over the ice and to the flats where we hunt geese, and lately we have been having ice breakup and no ice during springtime bird hunting, which affects us to be able to go out and hunt these animals. And in the middle is a picture of caribou. We traveled 190 miles to get to caribou and to get one. And we were lucky that we had enough snow and ice in order to do this trip. But caribou are being affected due to the no snow and no ice where they can travel, and their food source of lichen, and that leaves them being vulnerable. On the right is a picture of blueberries. We had a summer 2019 where the berries were not that great because of how hot it got. It just dried up them before we could go out and pick them, or before they even were ripe enough for us to go out and pick them. So that is how climate change is affecting our subsistence and our food sources. So not only does climate change affect Alaska Natives' food sources, but their income as well. In many communities, there are limited job opportunities, and in the summer, commercial fishing and commercial crabbing produce income for people who are without jobs during the winter. And with climate change, it's affecting our salmon because of the warmer ocean temperatures. A lot of them are now belly up or they're scarce. And for crab, it'll push, if it's warmer, if the water's warmer, it'll push crab out to deeper seas, enabling us to not be able to get hardly any crab. So not only is climate change affecting our food resources, but our income as well. So that is how a global issue is affecting the Indigenous communities of Alaska. And though we are finding many ways to adapt, our identity is being threatened. Thank you for listening.